This is lasagna bolognese. I think that's how you say it. Real G's move in silence, like lasagna. Yep, you guys know that? Hey, I'm Sommelier Andre Houston Mack, and I'm gonna share with you the best tips to pair any meal with the perfect wine. Choosing the perfect wine to enhance your meal only can make the meal taste better. I'm gonna talk about a lot of things today about like what you're looking for in the dish, what you're looking for in the wine, and what happens together when they come to like a perfect marriage. But also, you should throw all that out the window if you like to drink rum and Coke with your pasta. But for those of you and for the people who want to drink wine with food and understand better how those two can go together, that's what today is all about. All right, let's bring out the first dish. I don't know why I did that. I was watching some wrestling last night. This is carbonara. I know this dish all too well, a favorite in my household. I generally eat it cold. I eat the leftovers off my kids' plates on the table. You have the smokiness from the meat, you have a thick pasta, you have a creamy egg sauce, and there's some cheese there. You know, you have to have some memory here of like what things taste like. If you can just think about all of those flavors, then you can translate it into what you would like to drink. Generally when I start, I try to do the whole bite, you know, like a perfect bite, but I might come in and like dab a little bit on the sauce. We have a little bit of pasta, some guanciale here, and a little bit of sauce. So guanciale, really salty, chewy. There's a crunchy texture to it. Kind of lovely offset to like this bouncy chew that you get from the rigatoni. It's got this creaminess to it. Lots of pepper, right? So like on the finish, I feel like the pepper is kind of lingering. I'm looking for something that has a little bit of acid in it to kind of help cut through the richness of that, or something with a little bit of fruit on it to kind of cut through the, you know, the saltiness of it, right? Resetting your palate back to zero. It's the best way to explain palate fatigue, right? You chew a piece of gum for 45 minutes, and then all of a sudden you realize that the gum has no taste anymore. You take that piece of gum out, maybe you put it on the side of a plate, you talk for 30 or 40 minutes again, and then you realize that the gum is there, and you pop it right back in your mouth. And like magic, it has some flavor. It's not as flavorful as it was when it first started, but there is some flavor there. To have a break in that and have a glass of wine that kind of helps cleanse the palate, right, to help you set up for the next bite, to me, I think that's what food and wine pairing is about. Also, just when you look at food and wine pairing, you can either compare or contrast. Comparing means pair like with like. And then contrasting where it's like with not like. So it's like a creamy sauce with, you know, something a little bit more linear, high acid to kind of help penetrate the richness of the sauce. So I'm thinking of a red wine, high acid, that has some earthy characteristics to it, but also has some fruit. So maybe a red wine, newer release, vintage. Here we have the Chianti. Chianti is actually a place in Italy. The main grape here is Sangiovese, which is a high acid red grape. I think pairs perfectly with this particular dish. It has all the qualities that we talked about, pretty youthful, fruit forward. As a wine starts to age, it loses some of its youthfulness in that sense of the fruit starts to fade. And so you don't get a lot of the freshness that I would like to think of that would pair well with this dish. Medium bodied, a lot more fruit. The sides of my tongue are tingling, which means that the wine is high acid, and I think I'm ready for another bite. So, you know, all the saltiness and the cheese that I have at the end, you know, really dissipate. And like, it's like, okay, I'm ready for the next bite and experience the dish, you know, like it's brand new. This is Liguria pesto pasta. This is a trophy pasta here with a Genovese style pesto, which is pine nuts, Parmesan, basil, olive oil, pecorino, and a little bit of cheese on top. I would steer away from full body red wines here. I think it would kind of just wipe out a lot of the freshness and the greenness and the beauty of this dish. Definitely get like basil, it's grassy, it feels very green. Generally, when I think about highly aromatic dishes, something like this, you know, I want a wine to kind of mimic the same things, right? I'm looking for a wine with acid. Acid's an amplifier. The reason why you put salt on a dish is to really kind of heighten and bring out the flavors of a dish. This is pairing like with like. So we want a wine that will mimic the style of this dish. To me, I think when you match like with like, and they connect, it resets the palate back to zero. How do you choose those styles? You know, a food and wine pairing if you want to do like with like or to do contrast. Really think about the flavors in that dish, right? And start to go over in your head, you know, this is what it's going to taste like. And I think that's an exercise that can help you in the future in selecting wine. I think I'm going to gravitate to Trebbiano d'Abruzzo. So this is an Italian white wine here that embodies a lot of those attributes that we talked about. High acid, light to medium body, grassy notes, very aromatic, floral, and has some pretty decent acidity. Generally speaking, in a restaurant setting, there's gonna be someone there that knows something about the wine list. There you can say what you're looking for, right? You went through the dish, you mentally went through and you said, well, I would like to try something that's light to medium body, white wine, that has some freshness to it. And that's one way to kind of hedge your bet. This is lasagna bolognese. I think that's how you say it. Sheets of pasta. Bolognese, I believe, is ground beef, pork, and veal. So there is a little bit of meat in the sauce here. This is a bechamel sauce. When I think of anything that's dense and heavy, I'm thinking of richer style wine. A wine that's fuller bodied, and that could be from grape skins, that could be from where it's grown, and also that could be from tannins. If we're thinking of a wine that spends quite a bit of time in oak, anything grown in a warmer region, generally those wines tend to be riper, fuller bodied, and that's what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about dense food. Now we could go on the opposite side. When I think about lasagna, I could do a Chardonnay, which is basically a white wine that's treated like a red wine. It spends lots of time in oak, a very rich from a warm region Chardonnay, I think can also be a great pairing for this particular dish. First impression is like this sauce that's cooked down, there's a meatiness to it, stewed tomatoes. And then you have like cheese that comes in that's kind of gooey, that's chewing down on the pasta. This gives you lots of texture. Man, I'm thinking like big old red here. This is like, a comfort dish in the heart of the winter. If you have a fireplace or a fake one on your TV, it's on, right? And you're drinking, a great red wine with this. Something that kind of warms you up in the inside. So a little, higher on the scale of the alcohol scale, just like, just kind of like a big hug. So I selected the Barbera d'Alba from Italy. It's just like an easy drinking, fruit-forward style wine that I think that would be served well with this dish. Now, when I say easy drinking, I mean the wine is not high in tannin. It doesn't need to spend a lot of time in the bottle to age for those kind of tannins to mellow out, and also makes the price approachable. It smells amazing. Right off the bat, I'm getting licorice, black licorice, the strawberry, tart cherry, this like kind of peppery note to it, just very, very subtle. Ripe, fun, decent acidity, but I think like the fruitiness kind of is really gonna help with like this kind of rich, dense texture that we have here. Texture-wise, I feel like the body matches up. Acid is like great for like the saltiness of the cheese. I think most people sit down and say, I have this beautiful lasagna here, and I have one of my favorite wines, no matter where it is in the world, it's red, and I'm eating them together. What could be better than that? And to be honest with you, nothing can be better than that in your mind if that's what tastes great to you. I think here, trying to find the right wine and the right balance just kind of takes the experience to the next level. This looks like spaghetti and clams. All the clams are open. That's a good thing. A white sauce made with white wine, the clam juice, so the briny juices from the clams, a little garlic, parsley, and chili flakes. Yeah, I think the first thing I get is the brininess from the clams. So it's kind of like this waft of the ocean. Then there's the freshness of greens and herbs. And then like right at the end, it's like this hint of heat from the chili flakes. Our biggest target is the aromats here. I smell the ocean. I'm thinking of a wine that would kind of mimic that. A breeziness to it, an airiness to it, a freshness to it that I get. Something that's mineral driven. I believe this dish is from Campania. So Campania is on the west coast of Italy. But when we talk about coastal wines, these are wines that are grown on the coast of a region. But that coastal influence, kind of really helps, like giving these wines a brightness and a freshness to them. Very hot days growing the fruit, but also you need cool nights to kind of really help the grapes like maintain some acidity. And that's really what you're looking for when you're talking about food and wine pairing, like a wine that has some acid. Maybe here I would even look for a regional pairing in that sense of, just kind of going through my mental Rolodex to figure out like, is there something on the wine list that comes from this Campania area? And here I want to select the Falanghina, and this is 2021. So Falanghina is the grape. This grape is indigenous to lots of parts of Italy, but it is grown in the area of Campania. Little stone fruit, little Mirabelle plums, peaches, seashell, salty water. There's a little bit of like nuttiness to it, and then there's like slate, salty rock, if you will. The things that I was looking for, minerality, acid, it has those, but there is a tinge of the ocean, of seafood. There's a ripeness of fruit that's at the tail end that I think that kind of match up perfectly with the heat of the chili flakes. If you served a wine that was too sweet with this dish, the seafood, the brininess with sweet would kind of be funky. That's the one. That's a good pairing. So the next dish is orecchiette, with sausage and broccoli rabe. Orecchiette, I think, means ear. I don't know why I know that. I think one of my kids told me that. It's kind of shaped like an ear. This is probably one of my favorite ones. There's lots of different flavors in this dish. Big flavors too, like so you have Italian hot sausage, that's gonna bring the heat. Even just the sprinkle of chili flakes brings the heat. Broccoli rabe, very fresh, grassy, earthy, porky, spicy. Definitely is a little something sweet to the sausage as well, which I kind of like. The earthiness and greenness of the broccoli rabe. It's funny, I really wanted to go red wine here, but I really feel like that this could be somewhere in the middle of the road of that. The most flavorful thing in this dish is the sausage. In general, when you're looking at spicy food, you tend to want to lean on something that has riper fruit and i.e. sweet. So maybe a low alcohol Riesling to kind of foil or attack the spiciness. So if we went in here with a high alcohol wine and spicy tends to be not good. All it does is accentuates the heat in your mouth. So it just makes it hotter. Broccoli rabe, so you think about bitter greens, grassy notes, but I think bitter is the biggest component there. And so when I think about bitter stuff, I'm thinking something that has a little bit more riper fruit. And when I say fruit forward style wines, what I'm saying is I'm not saying wines that are sweet, but they have this perception of sweetness because there's riper fruit. And I think that always tends to work here. Generally speaking, wines that are from the New World, United States, North America, South America, Australia, those tend to be fruit forward style wines where they lead mainly with fruit. Old world wines, things from Europe and stuff like that, those wines tend to lead more with savory notes. I think for this dish, for me, you know, what I would love and think that go well with this is something that, you know, maybe a little bit unconventional. It's not a red wine and it's not a white wine. I'm actually picking something a little bit in the middle, and this is a rosé from the United States, from California. This is Edmond St. John, and this is called Bone Jolly, and this is their rosé. All of the things that I'm looking for, the fruitiness and those things of red wine, the red berry notes and stuff like that, it will have a little bit of tannin because of the skin. I get that in this package in a rosé, but also I get that kind of refreshiness of like it being served chill and this kind of lightness that you would get through a white wine, and I think this would go perfectly with this dish. A little bit of rhubarb, strawberry, like a tartness of a raspberry. I'm gonna say asphalt, like walking over a freshly paved like roadway. The sausage kind of has a, you know, it's got some fat in it, so it's really kind of coating my tongue, and it's all the heat at the end. And that's what I'm talking about. At the end, no heat. Heat's all gone, palate's pretty clean. You know, it's that whole thing of like having the first bite taste as good as the last bite. I think that's why food and wine pairing work great, because it just sets you back to zero and right at the beginning. I think your tastes and your preferences supersede anything that I said today. These are some guidelines to like hone your palate and like, you know, experience food and wine at a different level. For those who want to, I think just giving a little bit more care and thought about it can only benefit you in your own experience. And that's really truly what we're talking about, right? This is about you, food and wine. So yeast come around and they eat sugar up, and then they kind of poop out alcohol, right? I feel like I'm explaining it to my kid.